Hello and welcome everyone to today's session, which is again about the tenses. Let's have a look at what we're going to be reviewing today. We're going to review the past simple tense today in contrast with two modal verbs that act as tenses in the past time frame, that's used to do and would do, and also have a good look at the expression be used to doing. So first, a very quick reminder of what we studied together in the previous session. We looked at the difference between present perfect and past simple. And we said that when we use these two tenses with state verbs, they have a different idea than when we use them with action verbs. So with state verbs, the present perfect is a state that continues from the past to the present. Whereas with past simple, it is a state that's clearly existed in the past and is now over. So we had the example, I have had this car since 2023, but I had a Fiat in 2023. And then one of our examples with action verbs was when we use the present perfect with an action verb is a completed action, but it's until now, without a very specific past time reference, whereas then if we bring in a specific past time reference, we need to switch our tense to the past simple tense. So it is I have already had. In this context, had is action, is eating. I have already had or eaten lunch, but when we say at 1:30 is I had or ate lunch at 1:30. So a quick reminder of the difference between present perfect and past simple. So now, what is this used to, which is also used for the past time frame, used to do? Now, used to is classed or classified as a semi-modal verb. But I'd like to think of it as a special tense that expresses the same ideas as the present simple tense in a past time frame. So we all know that the present simple tense refers to facts and habitual actions in the present. For example, these days I go jogging once a week. Now, if we want to express facts and habitual actions in the past that are no longer true, that have stopped, we use used to. In the past, I used to go jogging every day. So I think that idea is very clear about used to. But a common question, first a reminder that the time expressions nowadays and in the past are optional, because it is important for you to remember when you study tenses that the tense itself always clarifies the context and tells us whether we're talking about a current situation, if we're saying I do, or a past situation, when we say I used to do. So now the common question that I get is, but can't we just use the past simple tense for facts and habitual actions in the past? Why have this special modal verb? Actually, you can use just the past simple for habitual actions and facts in the past, but it won't be as clear that we're talking about a past habitual action which is over, which is finished. Why? Because the main idea, the main use of the past simple tense is one or several completed actions at specified past times, right? For example, last week I went jogging every day, right? So if you decide to use, for example, in this example, went instead of used to go to describe your fact or past habit, it is then absolutely necessary that you add a time expression that clarifies the context. You can't just say, I went jogging every day. You need to say, in the past, when I was younger, etc., etc. So that's why it's always better if you're talking about facts or actual habits that are over, that are no longer true, it's better to use used to. It avoids any kind of confusion. So Let's have a look at the other modal verb I mentioned, would. Sometimes you hear would as an alternative to used to. In this context, you can only use used to for habitual past actions. You can say, when I lived in York, I used to go or I would go jogging every day. So a repetitive habitual action. But be very careful not to use would do, for a fact in the past. You can't say, before moving to London, I would live in York. No, it's only for things that you used to do regularly that you can use would instead of used to. Otherwise, it's used to or past simple if you have made your context very clear. Okay? So let's look at some time expressions, common time expressions. We saw for past simple last week expressions like yesterday. Remember, I kept pointing to the past with my thumb, pointing to kind of specific time in the past. Yesterday, last week, a few weeks ago, in 2015, between April and June, when I was 18. So these are quite specific time references in the past. Now, with the idea of used to do, our time references are a bit vague, more vague or longer. For example, before, right, means it's finished. In the past, just meaning it's finished now. As a teenager, now we have a longer period of something habitual, a fact for a longer period of your life. During my military service, when I was self-employed, see, these are all periods of time, not points of time. When I lived in Egypt, that's the difference. And that's why for this idea, used to do is always a better choice than just past simple, as I just said. Now, in terms of formulation, fortunately very easy. Used to is a fixed phrase and is the same for all pronouns. I, you, we, they, he, she, it, used to, and then this semi-modal verb, used to, is always followed by the base verb, used to do. Right? Again, very simple. Just a little point that for the question form and negative form, we need to use an auxiliary. It's not a direct question or negative. We need to use the auxiliary verb did, and then the negative didn't. And as you can see, I've underlined it. Once you have used did or didn't, used changes to use. So the D is dropped. Now, in spoken English, really there is phonetically absolutely no difference whether we have a D there or not. For example, if I say, I used to do it and I didn't used to do it, there's absolutely no phonetic difference. So you can only really see this form that, oh, okay, there is no D after did or didn't. Right? Now, I'd like to mention, because of this, a very common mistake. So be careful. The first common mistake is thinking that, oh, okay, so if used to with the D, past, expresses a fact or habitual action in the past, then logically, used to without the D must express a fact or habitual action in the present. Yeah, perfectly logical. Well, English isn't logical, so be careful. Used to on its own doesn't exist. You can only see this used to without the D after did or didn't in the negative and question forms. As we have seen several times, to express a fact or habitual action in the present, we just use the present simple tense. It's a tense now. And if you want to now stress the idea of a habitual action that is regular, happens all the time or regularly, you can use the word, the adverb of frequency, usually, if you want to stress that this is a habit, it's regular. For example, I used to eat a lot of meat, factual, a fact in the past, but now I usually eat fish. But you don't need it, that's why I've put it in brackets. You can just say, now I eat fish. It's clear, it's now your present habit, okay? So be very careful, I repeat again, not to use used to without the D for a habit in the present. If you do, you will absolutely confuse your listener, because they will hear used to. And they will think, oh no, I don't know if she's talking about or he talking about a habit in the present past. Avoid at all costs, okay? And the final thing I want to mention, common mistake number 2, is confusing used to do, habit in the past or fact in the past, with the expression. So it's not a modal verb, it's not a tense, it's an expression, be or get used to doing. Used to doing, be or get used to doing, doesn't indicate a habitual action at all. It's got nothing to do with habits or actions. This expression indicates your attitude towards something. It says whether you are familiar and comfortable with something or not. So I've created a little context here, hopefully to clarify it for you. I'll read it. Someone says, on a friend's advice, I bought a hard mattress last month. I tried it for a few weeks, but I couldn't get used to sleeping on it. So it's how you manage the situation. It was difficult. I couldn't get used to sleeping on it. It became clear that I am used to sleeping on a soft mattress. This is what I like. This is what I'm comfortable or familiar with. So I have now returned it, got rid of the hard mattress, and again I sleep on my old mattress. So now we have changed to sleep. Present simple, your new habit or fact, right? So be very careful again not to think, okay, so used to, habit in the past, I am used to doing, habit in the present. They have nothing to do with each other. They just feel a bit similar. And in terms of the last thing I want to mention, in terms of formulating this expression, be or get used to doing, so 2 things you need to do. First, you need to conjugate the verb be or get, whichever you're using, in the right tense and form, because this is an expression. The verb be or the verb get can go into any tense, any form, negative, positive, future, past, etc. So first you conjugate correctly, and then you add the gerund form of the verb. So you always add doing. And the question is always, why is it doing? It doesn't sound right. Why not do? Because in this expression, to is a preposition, right? If you be or get used to something, you can get used to a hard mattress, to your new phone, etc. So, and as you know this rule that has no exception in English. When you put a verb after a preposition, it's always in its noun form, i.e. doing, which we call the gerund. That's why he's not used to sleeping, not sleep. He's not used to sleeping on a hard mattress, or I've got used to using my new phone. Right, that's the end of the lesson, the review lesson on the past simple, used to and be used to doing. I hope it's clarified any confusion that may have existed for you. Thank you for listening and watching the presentation. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. For more on this topic, click here. Remember to also check out my complete online course, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and happy studies!